For the next hour, sit back and listen to the Ask the Expert Show, where local experts in the field of legal, health, and home improvement will educate you on subjects such as personal injury, workers' comp, pain management, dental implants, basement leaks, and plumbing repair. And now, the Ask the Expert Show.
And welcome to Ask the Experts on Talk Radio 1320. My name is Daryl Grandy, and I'm joined here by two gentlemen I've really gotten to know very well upon meeting them, and I'm very impressed by them. The law firm of Hall Copetas, and you can check them out at hallandcopetaslaw.com, hallandcopetaslaw.com, Hall, H-A-L-L, and Copetas, C-O-P-E-T-A-S, law.com, and their number is 412-344-1333. Why are they here? They're here to talk about workers' compensation and really sort of dig into the ins and outs of workers' compensation. Who are Hall Copetas? They are Thomas Hall. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you very much.
And William Copetas. Welcome, William.
Thank you, Daryl.
And we're going to have a lot of fun here today talking about workers' comp. You hear a lot about workers' comp in the news, in media, commercials, headlines. Workers' comp, when people think of workers' comp, Thomas and William, when people think of workers' comp, what sort of things come to mind? Perception of workers' comp.
Well, I think workers' compensation sometimes has a negative perception outside, but I also think it's a very necessary thing. I think the people who are impacted by it, when a person gets hurt at work and they're off work for a long period of time, it's something that really keeps them afloat, helps them and their families to survive. So it's a very necessary thing, contrary to what a lot of things that you will hear about.
Sure. Now, talk about your backgrounds. How did you come to start the firm, and why workers' comp? Why as a specialty?
As a specialty? Well, I started out actually as working on the other side. I worked for an insurance company doing things like automobile accidents.
And as a reminder, this is Thomas.
Doing things like automobile accidents, falls on snow and ice, things like that. But I really didn't enjoy working for corporations and businesses. I like working for people.
Sure.
So the first firm I worked with, I was hired by an attorney who I had worked with as a law clerk. I started at that firm in 1995 and basically worked with versions of that firm through 2016.
Oh, wow.
And I opened my own firm in February 2017, and June of last year, Bill joined me. We became partners.
Now, you guys are both Duquesne Law grads, correct?
That's correct. We actually graduated the same year.
Oh, wow. So you knew each other in college as well? Or?
Bill and I have known each other for, I guess, 25, 26 years, something like that.
He's looking
28.
28. Wow.
Something like that, yeah.
So it's a natural partnership then. It's sort of from the personal perspective. You guys both know each other for a while and really just sort of coming together and having the same mutual professional interest in terms of workers' comp, in terms of law.
In terms of workers' compensation, I started anywhere between 80-90% of my practice became workers' compensation, I'd say by the year 2000-ish, something like that. So it's almost been my exclusive practice area.
Has it sort of happened that way? Is sort of geared towards that path, you think?
Sort of what I'm good at.
Okay.
It's sort of kind of been just what I sort of fell into, and the referral sources I had, the clients that I had referring me to do that type of work. And I was fortunate that I could specialize. Now Bill, and I'll let him talk about himself,
Sure.
Bill worked on the other side, so we actually had lots of cases together where he would be the defense attorney and I was the claimant's attorney.
So you guys would spark against each other then in these cases. Now talk about your experience with workers' comp and how you came to be, as it were.
It's funny because my experience is the polar opposite of what Tom's was.
Really?
I started off my first job working for plaintiffs and claimants. Did that for a couple of years, and then I switched over to the defense side, and I've been doing defense work really for over 20 years, representing employers and insurance companies, and a vast majority of my practice has been workers' compensation, since at least 20 years, for at least 20 years. And then I had the opportunity, I guess 8 or 9 months ago, to change career paths, and an opportunity presented itself with Tom, and here I am.
Here you are indeed, William Copetas and Thomas Hall, the law firm of Hall and Copetas. We're going to talk about workers' comp after the break and really dig into workers' comp and the ins and outs of it, and really get into what is workers' comp, and not dispel the myth, but really get into some of the perceptions, the misperceptions, as it were, of workers' comp, and really get into how workers' comp works, for lack of a better term. But we'll get into that right after the break. Again, I'm here with Thomas Hall, William Copetas, hallandcopetaslaw.com, Hall and Copetas, Hall and Copetas law.com. You can reach them at 412-344-1333. They're my guests for Ask the Expert. Right after this, we're going to talk workers' comp.
If you or someone you know has suffered an injury, be it through work or by the fault of someone else, call Hall Copetas. Attorneys Tom Hall and Bill Copetas are lifelong residents of Western Pennsylvania, attended law school at Duquesne, and have been practicing for 25 years. Tom has spent his entire career protecting the rights of injured people and has been certified as a workers' compensation specialist by the Pennsylvania Bar Association. Bill has spent most of his career representing employers and insurance companies, but changed his career path to now exclusively handle cases on behalf of injured people. If you have any questions regarding personal injury, workers' compensation, or Social Security matters, call Hall & Copetas at 412-344-1333 or toll free at 844-822-6400.
And we're back with Ask the Expert on Talk Radio 1320. Daryl Grandy here with Tom and Bill. Tom Hall, Bill Copetas, the law firm of Hall & Copetas. You can reach them online, hallandcopetaslaw.com, HALL and COPETAS law.com. You can reach them by phone, 412-344-1333. Their law offices in Mount Lebanon, actually technically Castle Shannon, right? If we're being technical about where you guys located.
That's right.
Where's the address?
We're in the Lebanon Shops, which is 300 Mount Lebanon Boulevard.
Okay, know it well.
And
just moved in, right?
Just moved in, yeah. We moved in February 1. And so we're
just moved in.
Just moved in, yeah.
Wow.
So, but we're both very excited about it. It's a new space to both of us. We have some new employees, and we've been growing fairly quickly. But the suite address is 308.
Okay. 300 Mount Lebanon Boulevard, Lebanon Shops, Suite 308 in Mount Lebanon, in Castle Shannon, sort of on the border there. I grew up in Mount Lebanon, so I'm very much aware of the area. So,
and it's straight across from the Shop and Save.
Indeed, yeah, right across from the Shop and Save, right, the big one. Here we go. Let's get into it. There's no further ado. Gentlemen, what is workers' compensation?
Well, I'll start. What workers' compensation is essentially an insurance program that's designed to compensate people who are either injured at work, who sustain various types of work-related conditions, whether it's an occupational disease or hearing loss or loss of vision, things like that. But there's different types of benefits available to injured people as a result of work-related conditions.
That's very interesting. I mean, speaking personally, when I think of workers' comp, 9 times out of 10, I think of, ow, I fell, workers' comp. Right. Something more incidental. And you brought up a very interesting thing, which I personally never considered before, the idea that it can be something that can be sustainable over time. Exposure
Absolutely.
to a chemical or something like that, which could cause me just as much personal grief.
Absolutely. A more common or a common type of workers' compensation case that people don't think about a lot would be something like carpal tunnel. Carpal tunnel syndrome, where you're really not talking about an incident. I fell down, gee whiz, I'm hurt.
Right.
It's more, this is a condition that developed over time.
Okay.
And you mentioned chemical exposure, those types of cases. Different allergies, believe it or not, can fall under workers' compensation.
Really?
Although, believe it or not, but there's not a heck of a lot of compensation owed. When you leave the area and the allergy goes away, you no longer would be owed comp.
Good point. It's not sustainable upon leaving
exactly.
company.
Technically, it does fall under the ambits of the Act.
Now, who's covered?
Well, pretty much every employee in Pennsylvania is covered. That would include part-time workers, seasonal workers, pretty much every employee you could think of. Other laws may also apply if there's a work injury. There's various statutes that cover police officers. There's various statutes that cover people who work in mental health institutions, jails. There's also separate acts for longshore workers, harbor workers, railroad workers, and the like. So if you are injured, there should be coverage for you because in Pennsylvania, the law requires that all employers have coverage. Sure. So the employer can either self-insure himself.
Okay.
That's somewhat rare. Go out and buy a policy. That's the most common. Or number 3, the state will insure you. The State Workers Insurance Fund will insure you. if by some chance you find out that you were injured, you file a claim, and your employer was not insured, you can still go ahead and file a claim against the Uninsured Employers Guarantee Fund, which is a separate fund set up by the state legislature.
Okay, very interesting. So now we talked about this a little bit earlier. Now, in terms of what types of injuries, we talked about the incidental versus the sustained. What sort of types of injuries are covered under workers' comp typically?
Well, the typical case is an accident and injury case, exactly what you think about. Someone falls at work, somebody picks up a box at work. You'd be surprised, actually, most injuries that end up getting filed are for home health workers, hospital workers, nurses, aides, helping somebody stand from a seat, helping an older person or a heavier person stand. That is probably the most common workers' compensation case that I handle. But, those types of injuries are covered. But as I said before, all sorts of long-term exposure cases, occupational disease cases, things like that also come up.
Now, when does coverage begin for workers' comp?
When does coverage begin? Coverage begins from the date of the injury. There should be, like Bill had said previously, and your employer is required to have workers' compensation coverage in every case. So coverage begins from day one. There are several time limits to think about in terms of when benefits are actually paid. If an employee misses 7 days or less of work, they receive no benefits for wage loss. If they miss between 7 and 14 days, then you receive 1 day for each day above 7. Oh. And if you miss more than 14 days, you receive benefits for every single day. That's wage
retroactive.
Okay, so if I fall as soon as we're done with this interview now, for the first 7 days, it's on me, really, in terms of
wage loss.
Wage loss, getting better, getting healthy. After on day 7 or on day 8, day 8, I would get paid 1 day.
Unless you exceed 14 days. Okay. And then you get
then it gets retroactive after day 14 or day 15. Okay.
Now, the insurance carrier is required to tell you within 20 days of the day you first see a doctor, for the condition, whether they're going to pick the case up or not, whether they're going to voluntarily pay you or not. So, they have 20 days to notify you. So, generally, if on day 21, it would be too late. You don't usually hear anything until you've missed. It's not uncommon for the injured worker not to hear anything from the carrier until they've missed a period of 2 weeks or more, which leaves a lot of people in the dark and in limbo. But that's how that kind of falls, and that's really the reason.
That's more systemic than anything else. That's more systemic in terms of how the process works,
right?
For better or worse,
right? But now you had asked, when does comp begin? It begins on day 1. There's more than one type of benefit available to an injured worker. The two big ones are wage loss benefits and medical benefits. Medical benefits begin on day 1 and end whenever the person is fully recovered from their work injury.
Because those are two streams if I fall, those are the two streams I'm most concerned about. Oh man, I'm going to miss work. I'm going to miss that wage, that income coming in through my paycheck. And B, I'm going to the local hospital. I'm going to have to pay for that as well.
That's correct.
So those are the two streams that are covered. Now, how are the benefits paid?
You want to handle it?
Sure. The benefits are typically going to be paid, in terms of medical benefits, the medical provider has to submit a bill and has to submit the records, certain forms, and the insurance company then has 30 days to either pay it, deny it, or question it on the terms that it's unreasonable or unnecessary. Okay. The wage loss benefits are going to come directly to the claimant, the injured worker, but people need to be aware that workers' compensation benefits, as a general rule, are going to pay you, wage loss benefits are going to pay you roughly 2/3 of your pre-injury average weekly wage, subject to certain ceilings and floors. If you're not making a lot of money, you'll generally get 90% of your average weekly wage. But at the same point, if you make a lot of money and you surpass the ceiling, you're not going to get 66 2/3%. And let's say you're fortunate enough to have an average weekly wage of $2,000 a week.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
In 2017, the maximum comp rate is $995 a week. So in essence, you'd be getting less than 50%.
Wow.
Yes.
So, let's just do a case study here. If I get injured as soon as we're done with this interview somehow, some way, what do I do? What are the steps I should take as the person getting injured?
Well, I think the first thing that you need to do is report it to your employer.
Okay.
Once all of the time limits Any time limit or any deadline kicks in on the date that you notify your employer of the
Step
injury.
one is tell my boss.
Just tell your boss about it. Okay. Step two, I think, would be to see a doctor.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the doctors to go and see, the law states that your employer is supposed to provide you with a list of doctors back up.
All right.
If your employer creates a list of doctors for you, and there's regulations that state how many doctors are supposed to be on the list and what types of doctors they are, your employer is supposed to give that to you at the date of hire, and they're also given a period of days to give it to you after your work injury.
Okay.
If they don't do that, then you're allowed to see whatever doctor you want, and it's on workers' compensation. However, most employers will tell their employees, we have a list, you have to see these people, and they give you one name. And that's where you have to go.
That's the list.
That's the list, but that's not really technically the way it's supposed to be done.
So step one, tell my boss. Step two, see the doctor.
See the doctor, right. And then step three, what I tell all of my clients is you want to listen to your doctor and do what he tells you to do, and let me worry about your case and worry about what you're owed if you're owed anything. As I said to you before, until you miss a certain requisite number of days, you may not be owed any benefits. And then once the carrier tells you, yes, we'll pay this, or no, we won't, if the carrier tells you, yes, we'll pay this, then you don't need an attorney, you don't need to go to court, you don't need to take that next step.
Okay.
So
step one, tell the boss. Step two, see a doctor.
Step three,
get that list.
Step three, get that list. Step four, and then I would say do whatever your doctor tells you, and then you kind of go from there.
Okay, doctor's orders. All right, and once again, I'm here with Hall and Copetas, the law firm of Hall and Copetas, and we're talking workers' comp right here on Ask the Expert on Talk Radio 1320. Again, you can reach Hall and Copetas online at hallandcopetaslaw.com. That's all one word, HALL and COPETAS law.com, and the number is 412-344-1333. They're located in Mount Lebanon, in the Mount Lebanon shops. Now, getting back to workers' comp, what types of benefits are available for a work injury?
Well, there's payments for lost wages, as I mentioned before, generally 2/3.
Sure.
Payments, obviously, for medical. There's even payments in the event the work injury results in your death. Yet surviving dependents, surviving spouse, surviving children can also be entitled to benefits. Another type of benefit is what's called specific loss. It could mean the amputation of a finger or limb, but it could also mean hearing loss.
That's a good one, too.
Yeah, it could also refer to scarring, facial disfigurement.
Sure.
If you were not necessarily injured or scarred by the injury, like, for example, a chemical burn or something like that, if you had surgery, it's not uncommon to have neck surgery done anteriorly in the front. So long as the scar is to your head, your face, or your neck, you can also get awarded scarred or disfigurement benefits.
Oh, okay. Now, we talked about picking a doctor earlier. How do you go about picking a doctor? You get the list. You can see now, the first doctor you see, step two, see a doctor. Is that any doctor just to treat the injury itself?
Generally speaking, as I said to you a minute ago, when you report this, well, to sort of put things in context, people generally come to us after, okay? So usually what happens is I report it to my employer, and the HR person or my employer will tell me, this is the doctor we want you to go see.
Right.
You go see the doctor, and then you do whatever they say.
Okay.
Now, you're only required to treat with doctors on the panel list for 90 days, and truthfully, you're allowed to see whoever you want from day one. It's just a matter of whether or not comp will willingly pay it.
It's almost like health insurance, right? In-network versus out-of-network, right?
Exactly. Now, and that this is sort of a dispute that comes up a lot in a claimant's practice where they haven't been provided with a list, and then the advice I give my clients, go see your family doctor.
Sure.
Okay, see your family
see the
doctor.
One you know.
Right, see the doctor someone who's already familiar with your history, and then see who he refers you to. And if you need a specialist, he'll refer you to a specialist. A lot of times the doctors, I don't want to criticize any doctor. I think that they all work very hard. They all have their patients' interests at heart. But many of the doctors who are on the list of panel providers know where their work comes from. And generally speaking, they will often send people back to work sooner than their own doctor may, or sooner than a person feels like they can go back to work. Oh. And that's where the first sort of disputes can arise in a workers' compensation case.
So if I'm thinking that, okay, I may need a little bit more time, but the doctor pointed to me by my employer says, no, you should go back now, this very minute. Right. That's where there could be a little bit of friction start to sort of underlie the situation.
And generally speaking, that's when a lot of people will call Bill and me and start the process of going to court.
They'll call you at 412-344-1333. Now, what happens if I go back to work? What happens at that point?
It really depends on depends on the circumstances of going back to work. If your doctor says you're 100% better and you go back to work, then your right to receive wage loss benefits goes away. Your right to receive medical benefits may also go away if it's proven that you're 100%
everything is square.
Right. And if that happens, you have 3 years to reopen your case if your injury were to worsen to a point where you need to be off work again. Okay? It can be 500 weeks.
Right. It's not uncommon for someone to be released to return to work on a light duty basis. Not uncommon at all.
Sure.
Okay?
So not my usual workload, but something that's
Limited,
office work, shuffling papers, that sort of thing.
Right.
Not the heavy lifting.
Limited duties and limited hours.
Okay.
So if you return to work on a light duty modified position and you're earning less than you did at the time of the injury, your employer owes you what's called partial disability benefits, which it's a calculation. You subtract what you're making now from what you were making then, and 2/3 of that number
difference
is your partial wage.
Okay.
And that often actually will come up when it isn't where the hours are being restricted. It'd be a situation where prior to my work injury, I put in a ton of overtime because that's how I am. I work 70, 80 hours a week because I love my job. Well, when those people go back to work, they'll be told, we want you to work from this time to this time. And part of that so that there's a manager there,
supervision.
For other reasons, whatever. But if now I'm working 40 hours a week, I'm used to working 70 hours a week, the employer may think this person isn't owed comp because they don't know better.
Right.
Okay. But so that is a type of case that will often come our way.
Now, what happens if my case is denied?
Well, if your case is denied, you have to file a claim petition within 3 years. Essentially, within 3 years of the date of your injury. And what a claim petition is, it's essentially you send a request to Harrisburg to assign a judge to your case. The judge is here in Pittsburgh.
411 7th Avenue.
Okay.
Right. The judges here are in 411 7th Avenue, and a judge will be assigned to your case. The judge will send you a notice telling you who he or she, and then you'll receive a second notice telling you when to show up. Workers' compensation litigation is done on a serial basis. Generally speaking, what I mean by that, there's more than one hearing. At the time of the first hearing, injured worker generally tells his side of the story, and then after that, there can be several hearings where the employer tells his or her side of the story, and sometimes doctors have to testify. So it's a fully litigated process.
Now, final question here. We're just about out of time here on Ask the Expert. I'm here with Tom Hall and Bill Copetas, and just wanted to ask you guys, just to clarify, at what point do I contact Hall and Copetas? What point in this process?
You can contact us at any point in the process.
At any point, even from day one. Just for consultation.
Yeah, we work on a contingency basis, which means I don't get paid unless I go out and change something for you. If I resolve your case or if I get benefits for you that were denied. I always have a percentage of my clients who I'm working for free, okay, where they are off work receiving benefits. And the reason I take cases like that is what I don't want to happen is the same person to call me a year from now, Tom, these 7 things have happened. These are the decisions I made. And now I'm having this problem. Can you fix it for me?
Sure.
And the answer might be, well, step 32 ago, you screwed up, so there's nothing I can do. So I'll hold somebody's hand through the process from day one, even if I don't get paid.
So you're there for the client. You're client first.
That's how I view it. There are a lot of attorneys who will tell you to call me back when they deny your claim, or call me back when they've sent you to a doctor or something like that.
Give you a milestone.
Exactly.
Okay. Now,
early involvement with your attorney is always highly preferred.
Sure.
Over waiting until it's too late.
You're the ones who know what you're doing. Yes. So, as a rule of thumb in workers' comp and in life, consult with somebody who knows what they're doing first,
right.
as soon as you can to help the process. Go where the knowledge is.
I think getting an attorney involved is important. I also think getting to a good doctor early is important too, because it's like anything else. There's some doctors very good at what they do. There's some doctors who aren't. So I think that's an important part of the process. Good
words from Tom Hall and Bill Copetas. We're just about out of time, gentlemen. We'll definitely have you guys back on sometime down the road for Ask the Expert. Again, Hall and Copetas, these guys know what they're talking about when it comes to workers' comp. You can reach them at 412 344-1333, and online you can reach them as well at hallandcapitaslaw.com, hallandcapitaslaw.com, HALL and COPETAS law.com. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to speak with you guys, and I'll definitely have you guys on again. This has been Ask the Experts right here on Talk Radio 1320.
I didn't mean to talk over you. Sorry about that.
If you or someone you know has suffered an injury, be it through work or by the fault of someone else, call Hall Copetas. Attorneys Tom Hall and Bill Copetas are lifelong residents of Western Pennsylvania, attended law school at Duquesne, and have been practicing for 25 years. Tom has spent his entire career protecting the rights of injured people and has been certified as a workers' compensation specialist by the Pennsylvania Bar Association. Bill has spent most of his career representing employers and insurance companies, but changed his career path to now exclusively handle cases on behalf of injured people. If you have any questions regarding personal injury, workers' compensation, or Social Security matters, call Hall & Copetas at 412-344-1333 or toll free at 844-822-6400.